Doesn't it look strange to see a foredeck completely free of any holes? Now let's do something about that. And welcome back to the shed and MV Geordie. Well, this week we're going to wrap up that business on the foredeck with the new bowsprit and the new foredeck repairs, and we're going to install the windlass. Now, little update on the windlass. I took the Gypsy off when I was here last week to take it to town to check it against the chain that is on Pome. Well, there's 300 feet of chain on Pome, and I would much rather that chain was on Geordie than on Pome, because I don't need it on that boat and it's much too heavy. However, this Gypsy appears to be for a much larger chain than 5/16 triple B. In fact, having looked at the specs of the various 5/16 chains and possibly similar metric chains, I think it's possible that this Gypsy is actually for 3/8 chain. So that means a couple things. One, Pome is stuck with 300 feet of chain, which just is way too much, but that's another problem. The next problem is I have to buy all new chain for Geordie, and I want 300 feet. And you all know what that's gonna cost, especially if it's 3/8. So what I have to do now is take this Gypsy to a couple of chandleries, any place that might sell an assortment of chains, and see which chain fits in here just perfectly. Even just lifting this up near the water gives me the heebie-jeebies, especially because it's bronze, non-ferrous. You can't pick it up with a magnet. All right, let's get to work. So I'm just putting this back together for now because it's going to be a while before I can be buying any chain. Anyway, one of the clutch discs was completely soaked in oil, so I cleaned it up with acetone, but now I'm going to burn the remainder out with some heat. Okay then, so the first order of business is going to be putting a whole bunch more bolts into this big timber, bolted through to the existing beam that's here. And it's also going to get a bunch of large wood screws from inside through the plywood into this. So this is going to be pretty stout. I'm not going to bond this to the plywood because I think it's going to have plenty of fasteners, and gosh forbid anyone ever wanted to get that off, it would be next to impossible. There will be some bonding coming though. Anyway, let's get going on some of this. All right, what do we got here? Okay, now it's time. Lots of PL. And there's a hammer. what I do need to do is put some support under these little corners. So I'll just whip up a little block and I'll just estimate this by looking down through there to there to there. Excellent. This will get some construction adhesive because that's pretty permanent. I hate these clamps. Alright then, so this patch is going to go in dry. And the reason for that is because in a couple of years when I rebuild the foredeck properly, I will probably replace this for a couple of reasons, but we'll talk about that then. Alright then, those of you with weak stomachs, guard your eyes. This is hardware store fiberglass mat. Now it is Bondo brand, so you know it's the very best of the cheap fiberglass mat. Yeah, kind of, yeah, okay. Did I mention I'm going to redo this when I redo the cap and top properly? Right, so yeah, so there we go. What we have here is some System 3 epoxy. It's lovely stuff. I've used it before. I realize I'm supposed to wet out the substrate before I lay down the mat, but because I've cut the mat and let it all set up, I'm going to start to get it wet, and in my limited previous fiberglassing experience, that works out relatively well. It kind of holds it in place, and then you can peel it back and get some more underneath. And again, purists hate me, I understand. Let me just get done what I can get done here. Well. First off, this isn't as bad as it looks. Many of you were probably yelling at the screen as I laid out this mat, because basically as soon as it gets wet, the epoxy just falls apart, and that's what those fin rollers are for. Yeah. Anyway, these white sections are not actually bubbles so much as just big areas of lots of fiber, much like we have up here at the edge here. It is a pretty homogeneous, bubble-free mat. I did get into trouble a little bit here, and that's just what it's going to be, and I'll level it out a bit. Anyway, I'm actually quite content with how this went, but I will never work with mat again. Anyway, whatever. Alright, well, I wait for that mess to settle up to something that I can tidy up. But let's get some varnish on the bowsprit. I'm going to varnish the bottom as well, just to seal it up. And good morning. Well, this went great. Maybe not as great as I might have hoped, but it did go great. It just wasn't curing last night, so I gave it a little heat with the heat gun, and it got it to the point where at least it's dry. It's not hard yet. It's quite cool because it's pouring rain, and you know, it wasn't moved as far along as I hoped. So now I have to decide what really the next step is. I have a very limited week, and it's hard to say how limited it is yet, because later this week we're taking Zephyrus out for a haul out, and we have to move it from Victoria to Sydney, which is about a 4.5–5 hour steam, and it's out into the Straits, so the weather has to be good, and we're currently under storm warning. So all that is to say, I have to decide what I can get done here that's actually productive but also moves the boat ahead. Okay, I'm actually quite pleased with that. Took all the bumps off. There's some tiny little divots here and there, but that will disappear in the non-skid texture, which I'm not quite sure how I'm going to achieve. But anyway, sponge perhaps? I don't know. Time to move on. All right, so the next step is to transfer the holes, or at least the marks on the deck, to where the beams are below, which I've marked off before. Now it's important that I do this now because I'm about to paint the deck, and I want to make sure that stays in alignment. Tape across here. And transfer these marks down. Or up, I suppose. This old porch paint came with the boat. It's that old. I used a little bit of it to touch up the foredeck a couple of years ago. Yeah, it'll do to touch it up a little more. Okay, doke. Let's start to lay some of this down. I'm only going to do enough to go underneath the bowsprit for now, because I don't know how far this paint will go. There we go. Well, now that's definitely going to need another coat, but I'm going to say, for what I'm trying to get done here, I am not entirely disappointed with that. Okay, the toe rails that I took off. These things are a bit savage. And worse yet, these chocks were up on top of the toe rails, and you can see they added this little piece in so they sort of fit, because they're not original in any way. And I always hated that they were up high like that because of the mechanical advantage against them in terms of pulling them over. In theory, a chock doesn't actually have a load on it in that direction. It only has a load linear because, of course, the load is passed through to the cleat. But wouldn't it be nice if the chocks were just sitting just on the deck? Super strong. But you're right, I can't do it. I have to put these back on, as savage as they are, and as briefly as they'll be on, as they, yeah. Okay, let me clean them up a little bit and see what we can do. What I'm going to do is place it in place, and I don't have a pilot drill long enough to drill down, so I'm basically going to take the bolts that are going in and drive them down, which will make a little divot in the deck. Drill these out. But what I'm going to do so that I don't make a mess of my nice new deck is actually mask just 1/8 of an inch outside, and that will limit the amount of bedding sealant that just goes all over the deck. The other neat advantage of it is that now I can actually just put the sealant straight on the deck and not worry about juggling that in the air. Okay, I'm also going to put some against the, come on now, there we go, against the butt of the tow rail here, so that we have a little bondage there. Okay, up here. And the poor man's quick rubber glove. Beauty. I'm not saying perfect, but at least reasonably tidy. All right. Now, of course, the very front section of this one's going to have to be cut off because the bowsprit comes through here. That's why I stopped the bedding early, but I'll just drop the bowsprit over here and cut it right in place. Okay, very, very, very pleased with this, actually. All right, now, so if this is just too much for you, I completely understand, but I'm not going to try and figure out how to cut some bungs to fit these exact sizes. And I need to be able to get them back off again fairly easily in a couple of years. So what I'm going to do is fill them with wood chips, and then fill them with 291. And what that'll allow me to do is easily dig out the 291 and suck out the wood chips and get to that bolt again very, very easily in the future. So let's just carefully measure for this. Okay, I'm going to put another coat of varnish on here, but before I do that, I have to drill through at some of these locations so I can take the tape back off.
No, it's totally fine. I was just going to go out for anyway.
Cool. Shiny, eh?
Ah, pretty.
This is the back side.
It's really pretty.
Yeah, it is. It is really pretty.
Stinky though.
Yeah, it is. Well,
not too bad.
Actually, varnish is not the stinkiest stuff.
No.
I debated what to do about the stem, whether to try and leave it natural. It sort of looks cool right now, covered with epoxy. One of the nicest details on a boat of this time is the way the knife edge, or at least the pointy edge of the stem, transitions into the nice big chunky 4.5 inch wide stem on these boats. Some of you may remember when Leo was carving this on tally-ho, and of course there's lots of mess going on in here, but it has a huge impact on how I deal with the front of the bowsprit. If I'm going to be able to anchor comfortably using this boat in a modern sense, I do need a bowsprit and a bow roller. However, we have to acknowledge that it ruins the look of the front of the boat and the front of the stem. So trying to find something to sympathetically tie this all in, I'm still not sure what it is. But anyway, at least I'm pretty sure I'll always have the stem painted. Doesn't it look strange to see a foredeck completely free of any holes? Well, let's do something about that. So much like I did with the toe rail, I'm going to limit the 291 or sealant mess by masking it here. And about 3/16 of an inch out. And this again does two things for me. One, it, as I just said, limits how much the sealant will blow out when I lay it down. The other thing is it allows me to put the sealant on the deck rather than on the bowsprit, which makes it a lot easier to handle putting it all in place. All right then, swing this aside and lay a healthy dose of bedding. A little dollop where that bolt is going to go through, and then a fair amount of bedding where the Samson post is going to be, and then an awful lot where the windlass is going to be. And now before I lay the bowsprit down, I'm actually going to put a little tung oil on the center of the bottom, because I don't want it to bond incredibly well to this, because I do want this to come up again in a couple of years. So just around the middle, the edges I'll leave clean so that it can bond well to the sealant. All right then, the big moment. And now that I know I have this centered, I'm actually just going to put a piece of tape to keep that indexed. And gosh forbid it drifts a bit while I'm doing this next step. Okay, so for now, I'm just going to put a single bolt down the center line of each of these, and that bolt is only going to be a 1/4 inch lag bolt with a washer on top. Now, in time, when this is reinstalled, it'll be installed with much larger bolts, and the bolt heads will be countersunk and there'll be bungs in here. But I don't want to bother having to put bungs in something that is just going to come apart again in relatively short order. Now, I don't want to bring it down too tight yet, because the bedding under here, I don't want to squeeze it all out. I want it to stay sort of puffed up as much as possible. So I'm going to lay out all of this, install the windlass, install everything, and then in a couple of days I'll come back and really scrunch it down. If you're not familiar with these lovely long drill bits, your hardware store has them. They're called aircraft bits. I guess there's lots of places on aircraft where you need a long bit. All right then, so for this, right there. Now this isn't going to go down fully bedded, but I will put little gobs of butyl tape around each bolt hole when I put it in. But for now, I just want to get one bolt lined up to hold the bedding down, and that's going to be right here. Okay, all those bolts have now held the bowsprit down, and it's sitting in the bedding. So I can now clean up the sealant at the edge and start to think about setting down the windlass. Now, I don't often use these sort of caulking spreader tools. But in this case, I think it merits it because it's a pretty big joint and there's going to be lots of excess that I'm going to want to be able to deal with relatively neatly. Now, to be fair, I'm going to be sanding the sides of the bowsprit again in preparation for more varnish. So it doesn't matter if it's climbing up the side a little bit. But let's do the best job we can. 291 and its big brother 295 are lovely, lovely sealants, but boy, they are sticky. Ay, stressful much? Whew. Ha ha! Ha ha! That's the cleanest hands I've ever had from a job like that. Whew. Well, I'm just going to put a little piece of tape on here as tenting to reduce the likelihood of getting sawdust and my fingers in this sealant in the next hour or so. Okay, so the windlass is going to go around here somewhere. So I'm just going to take these little sticks and sit them on here so that I don't have to drag it around on the bowsprit too much. Okay, so a little lift here, a little lift there, roughly there. So the chain locker starts here, and the chain would now drop there, but because of the way the bow works, I want it to not castle too much, and I don't want the windlass any further forward than I need it, because I don't want weight further forward than I need it. But I'm going to say, oh, maybe slightly aft of here, slightly aft, like maybe there. Oh, doesn't that look lovely? Just lovely. Yeah, I'm gonna say that's just about it. Okay, so let's work on centering. Now I can only make a small divot because the drill motor hits the windlass, so I'm really just marking these at this point. All right, there's some more holes required. One would be the big one that the chain is going to go down into the locker through all of this, which would be basically directly below here. And how that has a cover on it in the future we've talked about, I just don't know. And then we need holes for the wires because the electrical terminals are on the bottom of the motor here and the wires have to go down through. So this one is pretty self-evident. It's basically directly below here, somewhere, maybe about there. We're good. Now the electrical wires, a little more complicated. Okay, I've worked on a few boats where the electric holes are directly below, and they're miserable if you ever have to do any servicing. So I'm going to replace this cover because I very much believe that the wise people at McMurray designed the back of the cover to leave enough space to comfortably accommodate putting the wires at the back of the motor. So if I hold this up in place and I place that piece of tape right there, one here, and one here, I can remove this again and see that there's plenty of room here to put a couple of holes for some pretty big wires. Now the wires have to go forward, so but they're also going to have to be relatively well bedded because this cover is not waterproof, so any water on the deck here is going to get under here. So I think the wires are going to come up, cross each other, and then under to the few terminals. But that can be determined later. As long as I'm well inside, we're good. this will be a number of steps required. All right, and there's that. The last two holes are for the cables. Okay, so this is going to be bedded in butyl tape. And if you have been watching for any time at all, you'll know that this is my favorite method of bedding anything. Okay, we'll bring this over. It comes in at a bit of an angle, and it comes across to about here. Across about here. And we're gonna put across here, so these are completely sealed off. I think this may need some improvement here. Oh, okie dokie. Right about there. Right about there. All right. All right. All right. Yes. Now, in terms of sealing this, I will oil and varnish this once I know exactly what size it's going to be. And in terms of sealing this won't get any sealing because the wires that go into here will be completely bedded and sealed in butyl tape around the top before they go down. So the idea then, if any humidity gets in there, I want it to be able to evaporate back off again down into the bilge. Wow. All right, let's go put some nuts and washers on the bottom. And now for the Samson post, which actually is going to completely straddle the this beam. And the reason for that is I don't want to just put 2 bolts down into the beam and have the other 2 bolts unsupported. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put big blocks both sides of the beam down below, bolt them through the beam, bolt them through this timber, and then these in, and man, it's going to be absolutely bulletproof. Square isn't entirely simple because the edge of this is curved, but at least we can get a approximation. All right, about like that. And like for the windlass, I'd love to get some bronze countersunk head machine screws for this. I don't like actually having a bolt head here because line basically can catch on that and chafe it. So I'll be replacing those as soon as I possibly can. But anyway, everything is in place and functional back here. Wow, super pleased. And then the remaining bolts up here. And then for this, just a whole lot of little butyl donuts that will very effectively squeeze in and seal against the shank of the bolt when it's pulled down. Alright, let's see if my little curtain was half as effective as I'd hoped. There is some stuff under there, but with any luck it's not stuck into the caulking and I can vacuum it up. Just slap a little varnish on here like it never happened. Well, this turned out just marvelous. I'm absolutely thrilled with it, and I hope you are too. And if you are, perhaps consider sticking around and subscribing. And if you really like it, give us a thumbs up and a share to that friend of yours who might also find it interesting. And if you really, really like it, and I really, really hope you do, consider supporting the show through Patreon or PayPal. There's links down below. All right, well, there's still stuff to do. I need some more fasteners to do stuff a little bit differently. I need chain. That's what I really have to sort out. I don't even know what size it is, so this Gypsy will have to come back off again and take it around to a few chandleries and figure out what size of chain it is. Figure out what I'm gonna do for a, whatever this is called. I know it's not a hose pipe, but I keep thinking that. And then we're pretty close to anchoring. Now, to be fair, all we really need to do is moor for the next little while, because I've made arrangements to use a mooring ball right out here in the bay when Zephyrus comes in here after the haul out, which I guess we've already started by the time you've seen this. Anyway, very good. See you next week. Hello and welcome to the Travels With Geordie Beer of the Week, coming to you this week from Vector Boatyard, where we're doing a haul out for MV Zephyrus.
Yet another haul out.
Yet another haul out. Andrea's first haul out.
My first haul out.
Yeah, exactly. You folks are off today. Well, I did started the sanding, so you'll get your first immersion in this tomorrow.
Yeah.
Dusty.
Yeah.
We're old hands at haul outs.
This boat is clean compared to other years.
I know. Next week's episode will be about the haul out, and my gosh, I can say a few things about a certain brand of paint that I'm very impressed with. Okay, let's jump straight to the beer, shall we? Daggerand Brewing.
Yeah.
Can you describe, not describe, but at least identify it?
It's crafted in the Belgian tradition, Dagger Edge unfiltered Sri Lankan, a Belgian style doubled brewed with tamarind and Sri Lankan kitchel treacle.
Treacle? Is that treacle? Is that
I'm not sure.
molasses?
No,
Treacle,
it's
treacle. Same thing.
Yeah, you know.
That's molasses, isn't it?
I have no idea.
Oh, Vinny loves that beer.
I know
Yeah,
it's
he's
good.
a bit
It's delicious.
crazy about that beer.
It's delicious.
Oh my goodness. He's a little bit nuts about bottle openers.
Yeah, that's just
Yeah.
happened lately, that he kind of loses it for the bottle
I'm
opener.
not really sure what it's about.
Sorry about that, buddy. Anyway, we're pretty excited about this. We've been hanging on to this beer for, oh dear, it's a tough pour, isn't it?
Right.
For a little while, and we've been looking forward to enjoying it. Yes, definitely. Last week, getting the Bowsprit finished up. You haven't seen it, but it's super, super nice. I should show you some pictures of it. Mm-hmm. The Bowsprit on Geordie and the new Windlass all set up, which is what these kind folks have just seen. Worked out really well. I'm super pleased with it. I hope you're all as pleased as I am. Okay, should we see what we think of the Daggerand Sri Lankan?
Dagger Edge Sri Lankan.
Is it spicy?
I don't know.
I
We're
think
going
it
to
has
find out.
tamarind in it, which I'm kind of
Tamarind
excited
treacle.
about.
Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.
It's definitely interesting.
Oh wow, that's sweet.
Wow. Fruity, sweet Belgian.
Very fruit sweet Belgian. It's good
Treacle.
though. I like
Treacle.
it. Yeah. I do
It's
like
good. It's totally. It's almost a cask beer. Sort
Yeah.
of taste to it, doesn't
Definitely.
it? Yeah. Anyway, very good. Very good. I'm enjoying it.
You want to have that with like a curry.
Yeah.
Oh,
that
that
would
would
be
be
Maybe a
good.
curry pie.
Yeah, something like that. Which we could arrange. Last week's winner of a Travels With Geordie T-shirt is
Chris Proven for 4896.
She's trying to read my handwriting. I still can't write properly with it.
I know.
Anyway, Chris,
Proven.
get a hold of us by sending an email to swag at Travels With Geordie, and we'll make sure you get your shirt. Actually, just based on this, a lot of people have asked, why am I still wearing a bandage? Well, it was quite a savage bite. In fact, I'm very grateful that Lady Zephyrus was actually...
Savage.
Well, it is a savage... What does a dog do when it bites something? It bites down and then it does this.
Tears.
It tears. So it's...
A ripper.
It's quite... Yeah.
It's quite multi-directional.
Multi-direct, bit of a Zorro on there. Plus another tooth on the backside went through the nail and split the nail. So it's not very happy. I wasn't allowed to look at it for the first few days.
No.
I have a weak stomach.
Because you just fall apart.
I know.
Yeah.
I did actually pretty much fall apart when it happened. But anyway, big thanks
We
to
won't
Lady
get into
Zephyrus that looked after me the day it happened,
Yeah.
and of course Andrea and Lady Zephyrus have both been changing dressings on it ever since. Anyway, enough about that. We need a word of the week.
And today it will be Anchor.
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 Anchor. How about that? Anyway, if you'd like to win yourself a Travels with Geordie T-shirt, simply use the word anchor in a comment down below, and I'll pick at random over the next week's worth of comments. And if I pick you, you'll have won yourself a Travels with Geordie T-shirt. See you next week.
Next week.
Cheers. When we'll be really worn out from hauling. This kind of got a